Did you know that CO2 fixation can occur in the absence of sunlight? In part 2, we are going to move away from the more well-known modes of living carried about by plants and animals and take a look at the other, more unusual forms employed by other organisms. With plants and animals, we can construct simple carbon and nitrogen cycles. Here is a typical trophic pyramid associated with a coral reef ecosystem. The primary producers, which include algae and phytoplankton, as well as other photosynthetic organisms, fix the carbon dioxide that is dissolved in the water. The consumers, primary to tertiary, as well as the primary producers, produce and release carbon dioxide when they oxidize organic carbon they use for energy production. This release of carbon dioxide is then recycled, being taken up again by primary producers. Additionally, carbon dioxide continually enters the system from the atmosphere through the dissolution into the water column, allowing the ecosystem to grow and flourish. Here is the equivalent diagram for the simplified nitrogen cycle. Plants assimilate inorganic nitrogen in the form of either ammonia, nitrate or nitrite. These forms of nitrogen result from the decomposition of both plants and animal waste products such as urea and the downstream processes of ammonification and nitrification. Don't panic, I will introduce to you nitrification very shortly. The recycling of nitrogen within a system is never 100% efficient. Therefore, without a continuous input of new nitrogen into the reserves, would gradually be depleted and the ecosystem would die over time. So far, we have divided the ecosystem into two groups, plants and animals, and have looked at the nutrient cycling processes they are involved in. However, their role in the nitrogen cycle does not explain the gain and loss of nitrogen from the system to the atmosphere that occurs. To be able to understand how coral reefs prosper in the nutrient-poor waters of the tropics, how the nutrients are efficiently recycled, making them available for further use, and how new nutrients can enter the system, we must look at the most predominant yet mostly invisible members of all the ecosystems, the microbes. Microbes consist of the two domains of life, bacteria and archaea. They are present on all marine surfaces, whether living or inert, as well as within the water column. Coral reefs are predominantly composed of sediments and rubble, which were once living organisms that had calcium carbonate skeletons. Here we can see in my right hand we've got some coral rubble, and in my left hand we have some sediment or sand. What you should notice is that the sediment has a much greater surface area for microbes to live over than the coral rubble that I have here. When the tissues die, the bare calcium carbonate skeleton is quickly colonized by microbial biofilms. Here we have a dead coral. You can see the corallites if you look up very closely, where individual polyps of the coral grew. And then, of course, this green fuzz all the way over the surface here is algae, microalgae. Here we have another example, and you can see in this case the coral has been dead for much longer, and it's got different types of algae growing over the top of it. Okay, this CCA is a calcareous algae which is red. You can also see a lovely sea cucumber that has attached itself to it. And then you've got longer pieces of algae coming out the side of it. Over here we have another piece of dead coral. This hairy brown material is a species of filamentous cyanobacteria. Although the individual cells are small, they form long chains which make them visible to the naked eye. If we look at them under a microscope, you can see the individual cells that form the long filaments. In seawater, there are roughly 1 billion microbial cells per litre. In this tube, we have 15 millilitres of seawater we collected from the reef flat. But as you can see, there doesn't appear to be anything in it. If we stain the cells with a fluorescent stain that binds their DNA, we are able to see them using a fluorescent microscope. Now we can see that it is full of microscopic life. Many microbes also form close symbiotic associations with multicellular organisms and are integral for the health of their host. Organisms known to form these close relationships include corals and sponges. If you recall, aerobic respiration is the oxidation of carbohydrates to carbon dioxide, using oxygen as the terminal acceptor. Many microbes are able to obtain their energy using this type of respiration. However, another group of microbes has substituted carbohydrates for ammonia and therefore play an important role in the nitrogen cycle as they convert the ammonium to nitrite. This process is called ammonium oxidation, and the microbes that carry out this process are known as ammonium oxidizers. Here, the microbes oxidize ammonium, which releases energy and produce nitrite. Water is also produced as a result of the reduction of the oxygen molecules. The resulting energy is then used to fix carbon dioxide to form carbohydrates. The microbes that carry out this are referred to as chemoautotrophs because the energy acquired results from the breakdown of the chemical bonds that hold ammonia molecules together. Another group of chemoautotrophs, known as nitrite oxidizers, utilize the nitrite in a similar way. As before, energy is created from the oxidation of the nitrite molecule, resulting in the production of nitrate and water, and the energy can be used to fix carbon dioxide. Together, these two steps, the conversion of ammonium to nitrite and nitrite to nitrate, is collectively referred to as nitrification, and the microbes are referred to as nitrifiers and include members of both the archaea and bacteria. Because nitrification is a form of aerobic respiration requiring oxygen, nitrifiers are abundant members of the microbial communities of the oxic sediments. However, because the energy extracted from the oxidation of ammonia to nitrate is very small compared to when carbohydrates are used, these microbes grow very slowly and have small cells and total biomass. Another very important process involved in the cycling of nitrogen is denitrification, and is driven by a group of chemoautotrophic microbes, one group carrying it out anaerobically and the other aerobically. Anaerobic denitrification is carried out by Anammox bacteria. Their name stands for anaerobic ammonium oxidation and involves the conversion of ammonium and nitrite into nitrogen gas, in the same way as the nitrifying microbes Anammox bacteria are chemoautotrophs because they use the energy from the splitting of the chemical bonds to fix carbon dioxide. But instead of using oxygen, they use nitrite as the electron acceptor, and therefore the process is anaerobic. Although it is an anaerobic process, Anammox bacteria must be in close proximity to nitrite-producing bacteria that, if you recall, live in the oxic sediments. The discovery of Anammox bacteria in the 1990s revolutionized sewage treatment. The conventional removal of ammonium-rich wastewater is by aerobic ammonia and nitrite oxidizing bacteria and aerobic denitrification, which reduce the nitrate to dinitrogen and require the input of suitable electron donors. This is an extremely energy-hungry process. Moreover, it results in the production of significant amounts of greenhouse gas, nitrous oxide. However, by using Anammox bacteria in the treatment process, ammonia is broken down directly to dinitrogen with a reduced oxygen demand because only half the ammonium needs oxidizing to nitrite. The nitrite can then be used as an electron acceptor by Anammox bacteria in the conversion of the remaining ammonium directly into nitrogen gas and water. In contrast, aerobic denitrification is carried out by chemoheterotrophic microbes, which unlike aerobic denitrifiers require an organic energy source and both nitrate and oxygen as oxidizing agents. Nitrate is converted into nitrite, which in turn is converted to nitric oxide, nitrous oxide, and finally to nitrogen gas. These sequential reactions are performed by the enzymes nitrate, nitrite, nitric oxide and nitrous oxide reductase. Both of these forms of denitrification have the same important outcome for an ecosystem: the loss of nitrogen through the production of nitrogen gas, which leaves the system and enters the atmosphere. This brings us to the end of part 2, other modes of living. In part 3, we will learn about other pieces of the puzzle that will allow us to solve Darwin's paradox.